Why was Shedeur Sanders the only quarterback in the building when he didn't have to be? Think about that for a second. This wasn't mandatory. No pressure, no fines, no consequences. Every single player on that roster had the same option to stay home, relax, and enjoy the offseason. And some of them did. Names like Deshaun Watson weren't there. Dillon Gabriel wasn't there either. No early arrival, no extra reps, just business as usual. But Shedeur, he showed up. And that decision, simple on the surface, might be the loudest statement he's made since stepping into that building. Because this isn't just about a workout. This is about mindset. While others saw optional and took it as a reason to stay comfortable, Shedeur saw something completely different. He saw an opportunity, a chance to get ahead, a moment to separate himself before the real competition even begins. And that's where things start to shift. Because quarterbacks aren't just judged by what they do on Sundays, they're judged by what they do when nobody is watching, when nothing is required, when effort is a choice. That's when you find out who's serious. And right now, Shedeur Sanders is making it very clear. He's not here to wait. He's not here to sit back and hope things fall into place. He's here to take it. Now some fans are already reading into this, saying it's a sign he's pushing for that starting role earlier than expected. Others think it's just off-season work being overanalyzed. But here's the truth. Moments like this don't happen by accident. They reveal intent. And if this is how Shedeur is approaching voluntary workouts, then the bigger question becomes, what happens when things aren't optional anymore? On paper, this was nothing. Just another voluntary off-season workout. No pressure, no attendance sheet that actually mattered, no consequences if you skipped it. Every player had a choice. Stay home, rest, take your time easing back into football. And that's exactly what some players did. Because when people looked around that building, they noticed something immediately. Certain names were missing. Deshaun Watson wasn't there. Dillon Gabriel wasn't there either. Now, to be clear, that's not unusual. Veterans skip voluntary workouts all the time. Players pace themselves. They manage their bodies. It's part of the game. But here, where things get interesting. Because while others saw optional, Shedeur Sanders saw something else entirely. He saw an opening. He walked into that building when he didn't have to. No one called him in. No one forced it. No one was watching closely enough to make it a requirement. And that's exactly why it matters. Because the real difference in competition doesn't show up when things are mandatory. It shows up right here. In moments where effort is a choice. Where comfort is easy. Where nobody would blame you for taking a day off. That's where separation begins. And whether people want to admit it or not, this is how quarterback battles quietly start. Not in big games, not under bright lights, but in empty facilities, early workouts, and small decisions that don't seem important at first. Because while one player is staying comfortable, another is stacking reps. While one is waiting for the opportunity, another is preparing to take it. And that contrast, it builds fast. Now some fans will say this is being overhyped, that it's just one workout, one day, one small moment in a long off-season. And they're not wrong. But they're also not seeing the bigger picture. Because in the NFL, momentum doesn't start with headlines. It starts with habits. And right now, Shedeur Sanders is building something quietly, something that doesn't show up in stats yet, but will show up later when it matters most. Because when the competition actually begins, the players who treated optional like it mattered, they're usually the ones already ahead. Hear what most people are missing. Shedeur Sanders didn't just show up to work out, he sent a message. And it wasn't loud, it wasn't posted, it wasn't even said out loud. But inside that building, everyone heard it. Because when you walk into a facility on a day when nobody expects you to be there, you're not just getting reps in, you're telling everyone exactly who you are. And more importantly, what you're about. Think about the contrast for a second. Other quarterbacks saw optional and treated it like time off, time to rest, time to reset before things get serious. But Shedeur, he saw the same word and translated it completely differently. Opportunity. Opportunity to learn the system faster. Opportunity to build chemistry earlier. Opportunity to stand out without saying a single word. And that's where the real separation begins. Because talent might get you into the conversation, but mindset decides who takes over. Now some people will say this is just off-season work, that it doesn't mean anything yet, that real evaluation comes later when pads come on and games start counting. And they're right to a point. But what they're overlooking is how these early moments shape everything that comes after. Because when a quarterback shows up like this, coaches notice. Not just the effort, but the intent behind it. Teammates notice too. Because leadership doesn't start in the huddle. It starts in moments like this, when nobody's forcing you to be there, but you show up anyway. That's how trust begins. And trust, that's everything at that position. Now there's already been buzz, just buzz, that this kind of approach could give Shedeur an early edge in the competition. Some believe it's a calculated move to position himself as the guy before things even officially open up. Nothing confirmed, of course, but the conversation is happening. And that alone tells you how powerful a move like this can be. Because in a league where everyone is talented, it's the small decisions that create big gaps. And right now, without making noise, without asking for attention, Shedeur Sanders is creating one of those gaps. But here, where it gets even more interesting. Because someone inside that building didn't just notice it. They rewarded it. And this is where things stop being subtle. Because it's one thing for fans to notice what Shedeur Sanders is doing. It's a completely different story when the head coach notices it too. Enter Todd Monken. Now, if you know anything about Monken, you know he's not the type to throw out compliments just to keep headlines positive. He's not emotional with his praise. He's calculated, direct, focused on results. So when someone like that starts speaking positively about a player this early, you pay attention. Because according to early comments and reports, Monken didn't just acknowledge Shedeur, he highlighted him. He pointed out his presence in the building, his consistency, his willingness to show up and put in work before anything was required. And the way it was framed, it wasn't hype, it was respect. Now, that might sound small on the surface, just a coach noticing effort. But in reality, that's one of the first signals that something bigger could be developing. Because coaches don't just watch what happens on the field. They watch habits. They watch who's early, who stays late, who's asking questions, who's taking control before they're even given permission to. And right now, Shedeur is checking those boxes. Now let's be clear, nothing has been officially decided. No starter named, no depth chart finalized, it's still early. But moments like this, they start shaping decisions long before anything becomes public. And here, where the speculation begins. Some reports suggest that Monken sees something in Shedeur that goes beyond raw talent. That it's not just about arm strength or mechanics, it's about mindset, preparation, and leadership potential. Again, nothing confirmed. But when a coach starts consistently mentioning one player's work ethic this early, people start connecting dots. Because in the NFL, trust is built before opportunity is given. And once a coach starts trusting you, that's when things move fast. Now combine that with what we already saw, Shedeur showing up when others didn't, and the picture starts to come together. This isn't random. This is momentum. And if that momentum keeps building the way it is right now, then what looked like a small off-season moment might actually be the beginning of something much bigger. But here's the part that really caught people off guard. Because Monken didn't just talk about belief. He showed it. But here, where things went from subtle to undeniable. Because Todd Monken didn't just say he believed in Shedeur Sanders. He showed it. And it came in a way most people might overlook if they're not paying close attention. The number 2. Now to the average fan, a jersey number might not seem like a big deal. Players switch numbers all the time. It happens every season. No real meaning behind it, at least on the surface. But this was different. Because number 2 isn't just a number for Shedeur Sanders. It's his identity. It's what he wore during his entire college career. Every big moment, every highlight, every comeback, every game that built his reputation, it all happened in that number. That's the version of Shedeur the football world recognizes. And when Monken made the decision to give him that number back, that wasn't random. That was intentional. Because in football, small gestures often carry the biggest messages. And this one said a lot. It said, be who you've been. It said, we trust what you bring. It said, you don't have to start over here, you continue here. Now nobody came out and said that directly. There was no big speech attached to it, no dramatic announcement. But inside a locker room, players understand what that means. Because numbers, especially ones tied to a player's identity, are earned, not just handed out. And when a coach allows a young quarterback to carry that identity into a new system, that's belief. Now some fans are already reading into this, saying it's a clear sign Shedeur is being positioned as the guy. Others think it's just a comfort move, nothing more, nothing less. And to be fair, it could be either. But when you combine this with everything else we've already seen, him showing up early, him getting praised publicly, him building momentum quietly behind the scenes, this doesn't feel like a coincidence anymore. It feels like alignment. Because coaches don't just invest in players randomly. They invest in players they believe in. And right now, every small move, from the workouts to the words to even something as simple as a jersey number, is pointing in the same direction. Something is building. And if you're paying attention, you can already see it forming. But here, the real turning point. Because as meaningful as that number is, it still doesn't matter as much as what came next. Now here's the part that really changes everything. Because as meaningful as showing up is, and as symbolic as that jersey number might be, none of it compares to this. Reps. When Todd Monken made it clear that Shedeur Sanders is going to get the most reps this offseason, that wasn't just a casual statement. That was the signal. Because in football, especially at the quarterback position, reps are everything. They're not just practice throws. They're opportunity. They're trust. They're investment. Every single rep is a chance to learn the system, build chemistry with receivers, understand timing, read defenses, and most importantly, prove you can run the offense. And here's the key detail most people overlook. Coaches don't split reps evenly when they're serious about winning. They prioritize. They invest more time into the player they believe gives them the best chance to succeed. So when a head coach comes out and says one quarterback is getting the most reps, there's only one honest way to read that. That quarterback is the focus. Now, does that officially mean Shedeur is the starter? No, not yet. But it does mean something just as important. He's being developed like one. Because you don't give the majority of reps to someone you're unsure about. You don't build the offense around a player you don't believe in. And you definitely don't prioritize someone unless you see something special. And right now, all signs are pointing in one direction. Now some fans are already speculating that this could be the early stages of Shedeur taking over QB1. Others think it's just off-season experimentation, nothing locked in. And to be fair, both sides could have a point. But here's what can't be ignored. Reps create separation. The more reps you get, the faster you learn. The faster you learn, the more comfortable you become. And the more comfortable you become, the harder it is for anyone else to catch up. That's how quarterback battles are won before they're even announced. Quietly, behind the scenes, through repetition. And right now, Shedeur Sanders isn't just participating in this competition. He's gaining ground every single day. Because while others are waiting for their chance, he's already taking his. And if that continues, then by the time the real decision has to be made, it might not even feel like a competition anymore. But here's the part of the story that gets overlooked. Because what Shedeur Sanders is doing right now didn't just come out of nowhere. It was built through adversity. See, when he first stepped into the league, everything looked perfect on the surface. The talent was obvious, the confidence was there, the expectations sky high. But behind the scenes, things weren't as smooth. There was uncertainty. There was hesitation. And most importantly, there was a lack of commitment from the system around him. Now, reports at the time suggested that the coaching staff wasn't fully locked in on him. Questions about the quarterback position kept getting dodged. Opportunities weren't as clear as they should have been, and instead of giving him a defined role, everything felt unsettled. And for a young quarterback, that's one of the toughest situations you can be in. Because it's not just about learning the playbook. It's about confidence. It's about rhythm. It's about knowing that when you step on the field, the organization believes in you. And when that's unclear, it slows everything down. Now, to be fair, this is part of the league. Competition is real. Nothing is handed to you. Every player has to earn their spot. But there's a difference between competition and confusion. And at times, it felt like Shedeur was dealing with both. Still, hear what makes this part of the story important. He didn't fold. He didn't complain. He didn't go public or try to control the narrative. He stayed consistent. He kept working. He kept showing up. And that's the part most people miss. Because it's easy to grind when everything is going your way. It's different when nothing is clear and you still stay locked in. That's what builds real players. And now, everything has shifted. With Todd Monken stepping in, there's structure, there's direction, there's a clear plan forming around the quarterback position. And suddenly, the same player who was once in an uncertain situation is now being prioritized, getting the most reps, getting public recognition, getting opportunities to lead. And when you connect those dots, it tells a bigger story. This isn't just about a player working hard. This is about a player who went through the hardest part early and came out ready when the situation finally changed. Because sometimes the struggle isn't there to stop you. It's there to prepare you. And right now, it looks like everything Shedeur Sanders went through is starting to pay off. And this is where everything starts to turn. Because not long ago, the conversation around Shedeur Sanders sounded completely different. There were doubts, questions about whether his game would translate, Questions about whether the hype was too much. Questions about whether he could actually handle the pressure at the next level. And let's be honest, some people had already made up their minds. They were ready to label him overhyped, unproven, not ready. Now, to be fair, that kind of scrutiny isn't unusual. Every young quarterback deals with it. It comes with the position, it comes with the spotlight. But here, what makes this situation different? He didn't respond with words. He responded with actions. Because while the narrative was being built on the outside, something completely different was happening inside that facility. He kept showing up. He kept working. He kept stacking reps while nobody was watching. And slowly, that started to shift things. Now you're seeing a different conversation. Instead of people asking if he belongs, they're starting to ask how far he can go. Instead of questioning his preparation, they're pointing to his work ethic. Instead of doubting his mindset, they're starting to respect it. But here, the key detail. This shift didn't happen overnight. It wasn't one big moment. It wasn't one viral highlight. It wasn't one statement that changed everything. It was consistency. Day after day. Decision after decision. Showing up when others didn't. Taking reps when others waited. And those small moments, they add up. Now there's still skepticism. There always will be. Some fans believe this is just off-season hype. Others think it's too early to say anything definitive. And they're not wrong. Nothing has been proven on the field yet. But what has changed is the direction of the conversation. Because now, instead of trying to prove he belongs, he's starting to look like someone who's ready to take over. And that's a completely different position to be in. Because once the narrative starts shifting in your favor, momentum follows, confidence builds, opportunities open up. And in the NFL, that's usually when things move fast. So while critics were busy building one version of the story, Shedeur Sanders was quietly rewriting it. And if this trend continues, then what used to be doubt might turn into expectations sooner than anyone anticipated. And when you step back and look at everything, this isn't about hype anymore. It's about a pattern. Because what Shedeur Sanders is doing right now isn't loud. It's not flashy. It's not built on headlines or bold claims. It's built on something much harder to fake. Consistency. Showing up when it's optional. Putting in work when nobody's watching. Taking reps before they're guaranteed. That's not something you say, you prove it. And that's the difference. Because a lot of players ask for opportunities. They talk about what they deserve. They wait for their moment and hope it comes. But Shedeur, he's not asking. He's earning. Every single day, he walks into that facility early. He's earning trust. Every rep he takes, he's earning confidence from coaches. Every decision he makes in these quiet moments, he's building a case that doesn't need words to back it up. And that's what makes this situation so interesting. Because by the time the official decision has to be made, it might already be obvious. Now, does that guarantee anything? No. Nothing is locked in. Nothing is promised. There are still experienced players in the room, including Deshaun Watson, who have already proven themselves at the highest level. So the competition is real. But here's what's changing. The gap. Because in football, separation doesn't always happen in games. It happens before that. In preparation. In habits. In moments like this, where one player treats optional like it matters and others don't. And over time, those small differences, they become big ones. Now some fans will still doubt. Some will say it's too early. Some will wait until they see it on the field before they believe anything. And that's fair, because ultimately, everything will be decided when the lights come on. But here's the part you can't ignore. Momentum like this doesn't just disappear. It builds. And if Shedeur Sanders keeps stacking days like this, keeps showing up, keeps earning trust, keeps taking control of every opportunity in front of him, then this won't just be a story about off-season workouts. It'll be the beginning of something much bigger. Because in the end, the players who win jobs aren't always the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who prove it long before anyone officially announces it.